So welcome back to session 11, and now we're beginning to talk about inheritance, which is also a very important concept for object-oriented programming, which is very easy to understand actually, and which is very powerful on the long run. In the very beginning, I will just create an example, and then we just try to create a use case where we just show the advantages of inheritance. And all the things we have learned so far, we have to use now more and more. So I try from the next sessions, I try to combine more and more all the stuff we've learned so far. So as a starting point, always as we use is Visual Studio. And that's why I just created a plain Visual Studio 3.1.NET project. And to illustrate why inheritance is so important, and to give you an example, I just create a very popular use case with customers and with different scenarios. So in the first step, I will create a class with the name user. I will create a class with the name user. So I will add classes as we have learned so far. I will add class. I can add a class here as well, or a class new item. Normally I will do it like over item. Let's do it over item. And I will create class. As we know, we'll use capital letters for classes, customer. And in the first step, we create a class user, which will be our starting point, which will be our main class, which we use as a template. So this is a user class. Our class user should have some attributes. For instance, a public string name, or it could have public int status maybe, and it can have a public boolean. A public boolean is live, maybe is usable. Is used. I can write is used as well. Is used, is active. As you might remember, I told you, especially in game development, there is always something which is telling us, is something alive, is something not alive, is something switched on, is something switched off. And sometimes it's called a toggle, sometimes it's called just a button or a boolean. So sometimes it's just important to have like something like this. And in many cases, I will have something like an ID, which can be an integer, of course, but in most cases, right now, like in the normal reality, in most cases, it will be an integer. It will be a string, because in some areas, in some scenarios, we will have strings there. Okay, this will be our user, and this will be our starting point for different scenarios and from different areas. For instance, think about you have a web shop, or you have like a huge database with customers, with premium customers, with employees, and with bosses and whatsoever. But all of them are users. So all of them will be users. And that's why we need inheritance. But in the first place, we try to create our user class. as we know, we will also create a constructor. So we'll just use a constructor here as well. And I will always begin with the basic constructor. Basic constructor. As we know, this is the basic constructor, and I will copy this to create. Oops, sorry. I will also create what happened. Public user. I will also create my mouse in some sense. Public user, a different constructor which takes in name and ID. Maybe just take a string underscore name, comma, string underscore ID. You might remember the constructor is used that we can initialize values, and the main advantage is with constructors we can fill our classes, we can fill our member variables, we can fill our attributes. So therefore we just normally use constructors there. So, and of course we can create different constructors in the first place, but right now I would say it's not so important. Okay, but just that was, and in the very end, of course, I will always have to have some methods, and I could create a method here. For instance, I can create a method which prints all the data, which is also very, very popular in most cases. And my methods are always written with small letters. Print data. I will call my method like this. To print out all my values. Maybe I just have to, maybe I just want to print some stuff, and that's why I will always use a method, which is very important. As you know from game development, something like log or print stats or something, this is very important for us. Okay, and to print out the values, console.writeLine. I can print my values, name, for instance, name, this will be name, and ID whatsoever. Of course, I can use other values as well, but in the very beginning, I just use just this. And of course, as we know, we can do anything with methods. Just to visualize the overall structure again, what we can do. So my user class has some attributes, has a constructor, has two constructors actually, and has method print data, which prints the data. Of course, I can use different stuff here as well. And when I return to my main class and I wanna create a user, I can create a user by creating a user with the word of the class, then a variable, maybe user1 equals new user, something like this. And of course, I can use a constructor here as well, but with user1 dot, for instance, name or status. So I can, of course, tell my computer the different values, or user1 dot is active is false, something like this. But of course, I can create a user in a different way. I can create a user with the calling a constructor, new user, and here I can use different constructors as we can see. C# and Visual Studio just suggests which constructor I can use. I can use my second constructor here, which tells me, okay, Robert, and the ID will be 0 to my second ID. So this will be also a possibility to create the user, and this is very popular to use just a constructor. This is very popular as well to just use a constructor and then call the attributes. So sometimes it's like this, sometimes like this. It doesn't matter. Actually, it's not so important. Okay. That's just a summary. That's nothing new. And if I want to print out my values, I just can call my method user and print data to call my methods, to call my function, and to see what's happening. Hopefully, I haven't done anything wrong, and it will print out my values: name, Robert, ID 02. This will print out my values all the time, and as I can see, my formatting of my printing function is not very good. So maybe I can just have something like this, and maybe something like this. And that is printed in a better way. Oh, not here, maybe something else. X/n here. Oh, here. Let's see what's happening now. That's already a bit nicer. Name, colon, ID, colon, and let's give it something like in the very end. Normally, I don't care so much about formatting. But just sometimes it's nice to have like a bit of a formatting. Just sometimes that it looks just a bit nicer. Okay, here we go. Name Robert, ID 02, and we have some formatting at the very end. Maybe just copy this stuff and here as well, which is not very important. I just sometimes it's okay to do some formatting as well. Okay, and now maybe I wanna have a customer, and the customer is of course also a user. So the user will be the basic class. All the different classes should be users, but of course my customer or my employee, they all will be users as well. But maybe my customer will have a bank account, or will have a credit, or will have like account information, or bank account balance, or bank balance, or credit, or like account balance, or whatever. So I can withdraw money, or I can send money, or I can buy something. A customer can buy something, just shop or purchase an item whatsoever. So just to tell you, like, a customer will be a user, of course, but will have all the attributes of the user. Will have all the attributes of the user, but will have different. Will have just attributes in addition, which just make the user to a customer. So that's why I will create a customer. I will create a customer. Okay, with new item, add new item, and now I will create a class called customer. And the customer should have all attributes of a user, because a customer is a user, but in addition should have extra possibilities to do extra stuff. For instance, purchase items or sell items, or have attributes of like bank balance or something. So if I go to my customer, the customer should be a user and should inherit all the attributes and all the stuff from my